And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo.
And I'm Miss Joan Marie Musi.
And we're here with Nicholas
Heyward
Sr. Sorry, Nicholas. Nicholas Heyward Sr. and Michael Ojeda, who are going to talk to us about a very sad story. And I'm so, it's been a sad week for all of us. And our friend and a good associate of Nicholas and the rest of us, Monica Shea, passed away and under very mysterious or very tragic circumstances. And so we're sort of a cloud hangs over us today in more ways than one. But we felt this was a very important story, and we're going to continue dealing with this issue of police brutality and murder, and how when the government does something like that, it could be very, very difficult to get justice. So Michael Ojeda, welcome to our, I'm sorry to welcome you to our program, but still welcome to our program. And I know your daughter, who is 11 years old, Briana Ojeda, died under the most horrific of circumstances, really, something that almost a nightmare can happen. And I know also, Nicholas, the same thing happened with you some years prior to this. And that
slightly different circumstances.
Yeah, slightly different. But it's really about the stolen lives. The Stolen Lives ceremony, of induction ceremony, which you could tell us a little bit about what that is and why, the overall reason why we're here today, as well as to talk about what happened with Brianna. So maybe we could start off by mentioning about the upcoming Stolen Lives and what that is, and then we can go into the story of what happened.
Okay. The Stolen Lives induction ceremony is a ceremony where we induct recent victims into the Stolen Lives book. The Stolen Lives book is a book that documents over 2,000 cases today of people killed by law enforcement worldwide. We try to bring together families of the past years who went through this, who had this experience, and bring together the new parents, so that way we can interact with both of them, and make them feel like they're not alone.
There's people who understand, yeah.
Yes, a lot of parents, when situations like this happen, they really don't know where to turn, who to trust, what to do.
Of course not. It's very hard to be efficient when you're in the middle of an unexpected grief, the shock of it, and all of that.
Right.
And much respect, Mike, for coming in to talk to us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
So the Stolen Lives Project in the whole, we're going to be inducting Brianna, who lost her life senselessly, because of the negligence of a police officer. And we're going to also be inducting Jonathan Smith. He's a young man who was handcuffed behind his back, legs shankled, and beaten to death in front of a whole crowd of people. And also Monteque Smalls, who was shot senselessly, unarmed man. And sadly enough, all three of these victims actually come from my community. So we're also trying to get in touch with DJ Henry family. That's the football player out in White Plains who was also shot and killed by a police officer also. And you need to understand also that these are all innocent, unarmed people who were killed or neglected by the police.
And with Mike's son and daughter, of course, we're talking about an 11-year-old girl that was in dire need of help and was refused help by the police for no apparent reason. I mean, in all the stuff I've read, I can't see one reason why this could happen.
This is her photograph, which is currently on the screen right now. And for folks who want to see who this girl was, and we're going to talk to her father momentarily, who, I imagine is incredibly grief-stricken and is going to tell us the story of what exactly happened. How could this happen?
Well, remember, it's less than a year ago, too.
Yes. So let's
and
just
Brianna's
go to
a beautiful girl.
Yes.
And I hope that you'll tell us a little bit about her, too.
Yes.
Maybe, I know it's difficult, and it's only a year ago, so the pain is, particularly strong right now. But I think it's important to tell the public what happened. So, maybe some have read about it, bits and pieces in the newspapers, but a lot of it was not properly covered in the newspapers, in part because of the cover-up.
Right.
So you could tell us, how did the whole event begin, I imagine you were there when you were
Well,
driving.
actually, I was working, but my wife was, and I spoke with my wife for time and time again. And basically, she caught an asthma attack at the park, and they called the ambulance. But the traffic that particular Friday, they had closed the Brooklyn Bridge for restoration, and there was traffic that was unbelievable. And so my wife took it upon herself because she knew that the ambulance wasn't going to make it there in time. And my daughter was just getting worse by the second. And she took it upon herself to take her to the hospital, which was only about 9-10 blocks away from where the park was. And on her way there, she ran into traffic herself. So she decided to take Henry Street, which was a one-way, and she went the wrong way. And by doing so, she had access to the hospital. She could see the hospital when she struck a vehicle, and then the police officer, as she came down the block, he stopped her, and she stopped. She saw him, and she, as far as she knows, growing up, when you see a police officer, it's help.
Sure, you're in an emergency situation. She made a series of good decisions. And suddenly, this guy appears.
Right. So he stops my wife. My wife jumps out of the vehicle, and the window's down in the back seat, and she lets the cop know that my daughter's having an asthma attack, to please call 911. And he tells my wife, "No, you call 911." And then he said, "Please, my daughter needs CPR." And he said, "I don't know CPR." That's when all the passerbys that was just started seeing what was going on, they started yelling at the police officer. And then Scott Velocious, I believe his name is, he came to the rescue. He jumped in the vehicle. As a matter of fact, he cursed at the cop and told my wife, "Don't listen to this guy, take off, go to the hospital," which was 2-3 blocks. Right. And he tried to perform. My daughter dropped right there in front of everybody, and he started performing CPR as my wife took off. The cop then, instead of going in front of her and leading her the way, he went behind her and just started whooping. And everybody that was, since, like I said, it was a one-way street and they were coming, she was going the wrong way, the police officer in the back of my wife's car, and he's whooping her. So the people that are driving down are thinking that it's a traffic stop. So they're trying to box my wife in. She manages to get around them and gets to the hospital. And as she's pulling in, everybody, the EMS outside starts screaming, and the doctors are running out to help my wife. And as they take my daughter out, lifeless body, the police officer witnesses that, makes a U-turn, doesn't even get out of the car to see what's going on, makes a U-turn and takes off. I finally get there maybe 10 minutes later because I was at work, and when I get there, I'm praying to God that he spares my daughter's life, and I see all these cops coming in. They were there to arrest my wife for a hit and run. And when they seen the severity of the situation, they all decided to just walk away. Then my daughter passed away, and we reached out in the news for the police officer to please step forward, and no one did. Not even the sergeant and the other officers from the 76th precinct that showed up.
Who this was.
Right, they showed up to arrest my wife. They knew the call was made. They knew who made the call, and yet still they didn't step up. It's like a cover-up. And then on top of all that, for 4 days, this cop altered his appearance by shaving all his hair off, and the commissioner is telling us that my wife didn't know what she was talking about, that there's a lot of safety and a lot of school safety and traffic that have the same color vehicles, but my wife knows.
Oh, they're trying to imply that she's confused.
Exactly. And then finally, 4 days later, when Ms. Benita Zellman stepped up and had a press conference and said that the commissioner has to know where these cars are because they have tracking systems in them, and she asked for his resignation if he does not show up within 24 hours. 15 minutes after she said that, I get a call in the funeral parlor by an internal affairs captain saying that he knows exactly what police officer it was. Now, after that, the mayor, the commissioner, they didn't send condolences. They have no respect for us and the life of my daughter. And then the complaint was in with Internal Affairs. Internal Affairs went and made an investigation. On January, they found the cop to be guilty of wrongdoing on police officer work. And they waited till May 17th to mail the letter to us because the captain of Internal Affairs was being promoted. And he waited till his promotion went and then mailed us the letter, which is another slap in the face.
Notify you that this had happened. Now that's the extent of what happened to this police officer?
Right now, he's getting paid. He's on, it's like a vacation.
Right. He doesn't have to go to work.
He doesn't have to go to work.
Paid.
And as you can see, we, the taxpayers, are paying his salary. And yet he shows no compassion and no kind of, he does not want to help us. So why is he still a police officer?
Well, also the behavior at the scene seems arrogant.
Absolutely.
I mean, not only to refuse to help, but then to just leave the scene of an emergency that you were involved in. Aren't they supposed to do paperwork and write up a report about things?
I could just imagine if a citizen left the scene of an accident.
Well, it's interesting they wanted to charge his wife with hit and run when the person who left an emergency was actually the police officer.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of ironic that that's the way they decided to play it. It's
What do you have any idea what was going on? I mean, was this cop just being totally arrogant, or was there some sort of criminal intention behind what this officer was doing?
It seems like there's a criminal intention behind that because I'm getting word he was out of his jurisdiction.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am. And he did not sign for the car. I have friends in that precinct. I don't want to mention no names, but I was informed that there's a log book that you got to sign for the car, and that book was not signed on. He just took the car.
Oh,
so
that's pretty interesting.
You have friends in the precinct. We're not talking. I mean, you're not anti-police. You're not saying this because we're part of an organization that doesn't like the police. We're saying this because something happened in official power. The people in power did not step forward to give you justice.
Exactly.
And your wife had every expectation that this man was going to help her.
Absolutely. I mean, a police officer, they're supposed to be role models. They go to schools and children, when we grow up, looking up to them.
As an authority,
absolutely.
Of course, yeah.
So where do things, now there was, I don't know, you might have mentioned it, but I'm fiddling with the equipment here, but was there a lineup at some point? The officer?
No, actually they lied. And they said to the news that they showed my wife a lineup, and that was not true.
Oh, really?
They never came. They never showed us. Like I said, they were trying to say it was not a police officer. So why would they show us a lineup if the commissioner is saying my wife was wrong?
So they fed information to the press that wasn't true.
Right. And then on top of that, I went back to the scene of the accident, and I looked around. I'm looking for cameras. And I seen a camera on the corner of Kane and Henry. And I walked into a store that was owned by Arabs. And I asked the Arabic for his name. I was looking for a certain person. And he refused. He told me that person wasn't there. And when I explained to him who I was and I was the father of this child, he then said that he was the person. And the reason for him not telling me his name when we first started the conversation was because he was being harassed by the police.
Oh,
a witness.
dear.
Yes, they came in and they took all all the cameras and the tapes that same day.
Oh, they confiscated.
Yeah, they confiscated all his stuff, and then the lady that owns the building was throwing away her garbage, and the officer asked, where's the tapes for that camera? She said it was in her house. They went in there without regard. She asked them not to go into the house, into her apartment, and they still went in there. They ransacked the apartment, and they took all the tapes out. And we have her name, and she's willing to testify that this, in fact, happened.
So you don't have access to these tapes because the police confiscated them and haven't given them over to you.
Absolutely. But we do have the people that...
But you know who had originally had the tapes.
Yes, ma'am.
How can folks keep track of this case? I know you have a website. Maybe you would like to give folks an opportunity to check your website.
Yes, we have a website that's it's change.org, and you put Briana Ojeda. We have a petition that's being signed online, and I do my footwork and run around
And spell your last name for people.
My last name is spelled O as in Oscar, J as in John, E as in Eddie, D as in David, A as in Apple. And her first name is Brianna. Yes.
And tell us a little bit about Brianna, just to put a human
Oh, my
side to
daughter will
this
wake up singing. She wakes up singing to me. She would want to cook, and she was a great role model as a child. I mean, we have the school made the school has a scholarship under her name.
That's fantastic.
And they have her picture, and she's made such a big impact to the children and the adults. And they tell, every time I went to school to get her report card, I would leave there crying, because they would tell me that my daughter was an angel, and that she always cared about everybody. She would see the adults, and she would see them sad, and she would go out of her way, 11-year-old, to ask an adult, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" She was also, she was also a student ambassador. She was picked to be a student ambassador for the Brooklyn Diocese. She was supposed to go to Australia. Oh, my daughter was such a good girl. She was very much into prayers, and she wrote her own prayers. It's such a sad thing that we're doing. Life ain't the same. I haven't worked in 11 months. I can't eat. I lost 60 pounds. My wife and I are trying to get help, but when we search for help, these grieving places, we went to one that was supposed to help us, but they're like $1,500 per hour per person. So it's me, my son, who's 14 years old, and my wife, that's $4,500 an hour, and I'm just not able to do that. So now I gotta just try to help ourselves by ourselves.
Well, it's difficult for anyone to lose a child, but for it to be in a situation like this where you have to really reach inside and have the strength to fight for her.
Yes.
And we really respect you for that.
Thank you, and thank you, Nicholas, so much for helping us and coming out of his way to come look for us, because he knows that we were in such turmoil, and we're just not able to reach. We want to help ourselves, but we're just not able to. And thank God, thank you so much for coming and helping us.
You're welcome.
So, Nicholas Heyward Jr., Sr., you had, a tragedy as well in your family that led you to be an organizer and to be involved with the October 22nd Coalition and the Stolen Lives Project. So I was wondering, maybe you could take a minute, tell a little bit about your story. I know we've heard it on this air before, and to tell us a little bit about the Stolen Lives Project and about the induction ceremony that's coming up this weekend.
Well, like I was saying, first I need to, if you don't mind,
go ahead.
make a comment on what Mike was saying. The whole situation with the case of his daughter. It's just me myself. I'm completely outraged at the way the whole situation went down. That officer not giving any type of assistance to the wife and the child. I mean, to be following behind the car instead of getting in front of the car, putting the sirens on. This was an emergency. This lady needed assistance, and she needed help. And this was a police officer who was supposed to be there to help. Had this officer not intervened, she would have been able to make it to the hospital without delay. But because of this officer stopping her, delayed the whole process of her getting her daughter to the hospital.
It seems the opposite of what you would expect to happen in a situation like that.
Right, exactly. He would instead. It looks like he just wasn't even concerned about helping this.
Why do you think that is? You've been in this movement a long time, since your own son was murdered under the most. To be playing in your own building and to be shot by a police officer who claims that you're he's investigating a robbery in the basement of a building is very strange right from the beginning, and I know that must have given you great grief, to deal with that madness.
Well, with the case with my son, the officer was supposed to have been investigating shots fired from the rooftop, and there were kids playing up there. They were all little kids. They all had plastic-looking toy guns that didn't look nothing like no real weapon. This officer supposedly had responded alone, and encountered the kids in the stairwell where the lighting was dimly lit. He said he heard a clicking sound, and he shot into the darkness and hit my son in the abdomen.
Oh, God.
In the deposition, this is the first story that they put out there. In the deposition done on the officer said he was not on the 911 call, and that the stairwell lighting wasn't dimly lit. He actually made statements in the deposition that he seen the kids playing from the roof of the adjoining building across. He looked across, he seen the kids playing. And that's when he came out of that building and went into the building where the kids were at to do his little investigation or whatever. And so he already knew when he came into that building that there were kids up there playing. But yet he still removed his gun from his holster and went up into the stairwell and shot an innocent kid.
Why do police do this kind of thing? Because it seems to be, you have a Stolen Lives book that's as thick as a telephone book full of photographs and stories like this. You add, as you're doing this weekend, adding and inducting more families into this movement. And why? Why do police do this?
And why the horrible cover-ups? Why are they stupid?
Well, first off, I believe, and from what I've experienced and seen since I've been involved, since my son was killed and been involved in police brutality, the police are not out here to serve and protect citizens. They just are not. They are here to people who are violating laws, protect the laws that are being put out there by people who make the laws. That's who they are there serving and protecting. And I come to that conclusion. Just the Stolen Lives book itself shows it, plain and simple. I mean, if you are there to serve and protect, my son would be alive, his daughter would be alive, and so many other people would be alive. And the system in the whole that governs or protects these officers, why did they not say what this guy did was wrong, and we are not going to tolerate this type of behavior on our force and just get rid of them?
That's right.
Why do they insist on keeping people, who are killing innocent people? Sure. The police kill more innocent, unarmed people than they do people who are committing crime. Right. Okay. That right there is it in a nutshell,
So what's happening this Saturday?
This Saturday we having our Stolen Live induction ceremony, which is a ceremony that we have every year. Sadly enough, since our last ceremony last year, 28 more people in New York City have been killed by police. So we're going to be inducting his daughter, Montique Smalls, like I said, who was shot and killed about 5 years ago. Jonathan Smith, who was handcuffed and shackled behind his back, and beaten to death in front of his mother and residents of the community. And the ceremony basically brings together parents of the past and new parents to help them get through their pain and the things that they're going through. They really need help. Elected officials aren't helping us. Community leaders aren't helping us. We have to come together and do this ourselves. The only people that I know.
Let's talk about authorities in this society. Like, who reached out to you? The mayor didn't reach out?
No one reached out to us. No one at all. And, I don't want to badmouth anybody because there's good cops in all places. But I feel like we the people need to monitor the police, because by internal affairs monitoring the police, it's like having a drug addict watch another drug addict.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's a self-interest problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I need to give the address and where this is going to be
ahead,
held.
do that, yes.
Because it's been changed. The Stolen Live induction ceremony is going to be held on Sunday, July 17th at 2 p.m. At Project Reach. Project Reach, which is 29 Elgin Street, on the 4th floor between Canal and Hester.
Oh, Eldridge Street. Here, let me.
Eldridge,
That's good.
Yes,
It's my
okay.
neighborhood, so
That's your neighborhood?
help you out here.
Paul's taking
right.
over.
The Stolen Lives Here it is, the Stolen Lives induction ceremony, July 17th. This is Sunday, 2 p.m. Reception starts at 1 at Project Reach, 39 Eldridge Street on the 4th floor, and that's between Canal and Hester. Take the D or the B train to Grand Street, and it's in the same building as KTV, next door to a preschool. So there you go, Project Reach, 39 Eldridge Street, 4th floor between Canal and Hester on the 17th of July at 2 p.m.
And while everybody's got their pens out, let's give the website for the more information about Brianna also.
It's change.org, Briana Ojeda. You can just Google her name and
it'll come right up.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and now let me take not to change the subject too much, but I wanted to take a minute to discuss our good friend Catherine, or as some people knew her, Monica Shea, who was the victim of a very terrible tragedy, and she was the national director, I believe, of October 22nd. And I just wanted to, without going too much into the story, because folks maybe have read about it.
But she did a lot of good work
to
for
mention
people.
her and her good work, and we were very good friends. I've known her for many years, and I know that that all of you were probably touched by her. And you might want to say a word or two of what it was like to work with her.
Yeah, Nicholas.
And Nicholas, if you
say that again.
If you would like to mention a word or two about what it was like to work with
Catherine. Catherine was an amazing person. She was somewhat. She was like my hero in the true meaning of the word. She always gave me encouragement. She was my sister, and in battle. She's been fighting for justice for not only me, not only parents, but for many other homeless people or where people that are in need. Catherine was always there. I mean, times when I was going through pain with my family, the loss of my mother, the loss of my son, I was always able to call on Catherine, and she always gave me good advice. She was an angel. She was my hero.
Yep, she did good with her life. She did for so many people.
And it's like so ironic how we got word from her and Mr. Heyward, and then we're looking forward into this induction, and 4 days later this happens to this lady, and I'm thinking that maybe I'm just so bad luck.
No.
It
was just a tragic situation.
Sometimes we do feel like that, but
she was a wonderful person.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. This is the last few seconds of the show, Michael Ojeda, and sharing your sad story with us. And I know it must be very difficult to talk about it. And thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
That's it.